today's video, we're going to be talking about how to pick your CXC subjects. So basically, this video is really geared towards high school students who will be deciding what CXC subjects they'll be sitting. And these are just some things that you should be taking into consideration when you pick your subjects, right? So the very first thing that I want to say is go ahead and like, comment, share, and subscribe. And without further ado, let's get into today's video. If you're doing the CXC exams this year, then you can check the description down below for the CXC study guide, for the CXC survival guide, if you need tutoring for CXC HSB or CXC biology, or if you want asynchronous lessons, you can go ahead and check the description down below for all of that. But without further ado, let's get into today's video. So first up, the very first thing that you should be taking into consideration, right, when deciding what CXC subject you need to be doing, the very first thing that you need to be considering or factoring is the fact that English and mathematics is mandatory. So in high school we call it English A, but I really mean English language, you know what I mean? So English B, it's not mandatory. You can do it if you want, if you don't want, whatever. But English language is mandatory and mathematics is mandatory. So if you're looking to get a job, you need both English and maths afterwards for most jobs. Or if you're planning on going to college, that requirement is the same right across the college board. Everybody in Jamaica need English and maths, right? So those two are mandatory. So really and truly, you don't have a choice. You have to do the English language and you have to do the mathematics because it's mandatory. Now after that, the next thing that is mandatory that I've been seeing, or my old high school did this, right? Everyone, once you're in school, once it's a high school, they make it mandatory now for you to do a science subjects. So it doesn't matter if your field is going to be science related, everybody need at least one science subject. So you don't have to do biology, chemistry, physics. But what I've realized that most students do who are not science students, they do human and social biology or they do integrated science. Those are the two subjects that they do. Somebody who is in the field of science would do biology, chemistry, physics, and sometimes even HSB as well. When I was in high school, I did biology, chemistry, physics, I did human and social biology, and I also did agricultural science because they considered it as science as well. Well, at the time, they considered it as science as well. So basically, you know that those are mandatory, English and maths, and we know that you need at least one science subject. So right now, we're at 3 subjects already pre-picked for you, right? So if you're not strong, my advice, if you're not a strong science student, do human and social biology at the CSEC level. Do that, or you can try integrated science. But don't, if you're not a science student and you know you can't manage, do not attempt or do not look at chemistry, do not look at physics, do not look at general biology, because those are usually more harder and require a lot more science knowledge, if that makes sense, right? And I'm not saying that human and social biology is not a science subject. It is a science subject, but it is, what should I say now? It is a bit more narrower than regular CSEC general biology, right? So CSEC human and social biology is a little bit more narrow, and then CSEC biology is like wider, encompassing everything, while in HSB they just focus on, literally as the name says, most of the human body and the social issues that relate to it, if you get what I mean. So that's that. Next up, what you need to be considering is your career goals. This is so important. There are a lot of students in high school that have no idea what they want to do with their life. And I'm going to say this. You don't have to have it all figured out, but you must have an idea of in what field you would like to go. Because what happens is that if in high school you pick the wrong subjects, when you graduate high school, you're gonna have to go evening class because you're never gonna have the subjects that the institutions require for you to do a particular program at university, right? So basically, if you're in high school and you're kind of leaning towards maybe a nurse, maybe a midwife, maybe a doctor, but you said something science field, right? Then you should say to yourself, okay, that means that I need science subjects in order to do that. And the truth is that in our high schools, we don't educate high schoolers on the university requirements as much as we should, because I remember at my high school did actually that try, because I think they have like an expo where different colleges did come there. I think, yeah, different schools did come there and just showcase what they do. Hart did come there, and just some local schools in the area did come and stuff like that, like higher education or like a certificate program. Those schools came to my high school, right? So they were trying to expose you to the things that you're going to need later on. So in high school, you don't have a clue. You don't know, like, what I've realized, especially because I have cousins who are in high school right now. I have cousins, and my elder sister is in high school right now. They really don't know what they need for the next level. They have no clue what they need to advance. Understand? So it's like I have to be there now with the knowledge that I have, and because I know how the system works. I'm saying that look on, even if you don't have an idea of exactly what you want to do, go on some websites and just see what is common between all the institutions. All right, one school might say we need biology, chemistry. One might say we just need biology and any other science subject. Some are more strict, some are not strict, and that will tell you if you need the science subjects or not, right? And to me, the most difficult thing is this: for people who do not choose the science subjects, the most difficult thing is this. What I realized is that the persons that go into subjects that are more social science, meaning that they just did history and social studies and like English B, they, if later on down the line they decide that okay, I want to become a doctor, I want to become a nurse, I want to transition, they have to go back to get the basic science subjects in order to get admission into a tertiary institution to pursue that program, versus someone who chose science subjects and successfully passed them. They have the option to continue in the science field, or they can go into the social science field if they feel. They can go into business if they want. Because to me, what someone told me when I was in high school, when I was about to pick my subjects, what the person said to me was this. They said science can go everywhere, but the other subjects can't necessarily go everywhere. So you have to be very careful about what you're picking. Science is not for everybody. If you cannot manage it, do not take it up. We all know ourselves, you understand? And that is why we have to find a career that supports our strengths. So this is what I'm saying. Look on websites, different institutions, check their admission requirements, right? Check the admission requirements, just and see what is common. Research is something that we should promote in high schoolers. Like, in, as we said before, we're trying to get them to be more aware. That's my goal. I want people to be more aware of what's going to happen at the next step. When I was in high school, there are certain things that nobody come around and say. Like, it's me as me go along, me figure it out. But why is that the case? Why doesn't anybody lay everything on the table until they say this is how it work? Why not work like that? So basically, go on the school's website, different school. You don't mean see I got that particular school, but just see what requirements. Just even Google it. Google and say, okay, Google, if I want to become a nurse, what subjects do I need? And even Google will tell you something, you know what I mean? Research, so you know what you're going to do afterwards. Because the worst thing is to spend 5 or 7 years in high school doing subjects, and when you graduate you have to go back at evening class because okay, you don't have the science subjects, or you don't have the particular subject that program wants. You're going to be in a problem. The next thing that I've noticed is that some schools have made IT mandatory, like my high school. So it's basically between IT and EDPM. So you either need to do IT or EDPM, but you need some computer knowledge, if you get what I mean, right? So basically, you need English, you need maths, you need a science subject, and if your high school is like my old high school, then you need EDPM or IT. So you need something. You understand what I mean? So that's 4 subjects already accounted for. Now for the rest of the subjects, we know that in order to get admission into university or to get a job, they just ask for 5. But most times students in school don't know so 5 subjects, because even look at me, I did 11 subjects. I'm gonna just need 5. So now let's get into the nitty-gritty as it relates to career-wise, what you're going to do. If you choose, what my high school did was that they divided up the subjects. So those subjects that I mentioned before, English, maths, the science subject, and IT/EDPM, those are mandatory. So what my high school did was that they divided up the subjects into 3 categories. It was basically social sciences, which basically mean like history and social studies and English literature. And geography. Those are the type of subjects that somebody who chose social sciences would do. And then they had science, the science category, which meant that you did agricultural science, you did biology, chemistry, physics. In my case, I did food and nutrition, because they said okay, it's a science, so I said okay, and I so went along and I did science. But the food and nutrition, that's a vocation, right? I could have picked to do cosmetology or something else, but I just went with food and nutrition because they said if you're doing sciences, that's probably the best thing to do, right? So in a sense, my high school was guiding me a little bit in the way that my subjects were picked. But I know that there are a lot of other schools that the students are not being guided. Them just have pick something just because, to be honest. Right, and then the last category was business, which basically meant that they did POA, POB, OA. Those are the type of subjects that they did, and like geography would overlap between that, I think, between the business and the social science. But science students, so basically I did English language, I did mathematics, I did information technology, I did biology, chemistry, physics, I did food and nutrition, I did agricultural science, I did family and resource management, because I guess it covers a package with food, so I remember how it goes. I did human and social biology, and I'm missing a subject. What's the other subject? I did what did I do? Let me say that one more time. English, maths. Oh, I did social studies. So social studies is the last subject. So basically I did English, maths, social studies, human and social biology, biology, chemistry, physics, agricultural science, food and nutrition, family and resource management, and IT. So those were my 11 subjects. But basically, you see how I was guided into doing whatever, if you get what I mean. But you have to take your career goal into consideration, or else you're wasting time. You graduate and you graduate with 5 subjects, right? You registered for 5. I did the 5. You graduate, and then you say, okay, yeah, try to get into a local college now. You understand what I mean? You reach that stage, and then the college just say, listen, if you didn't want to do this, you should have done biology and chemistry. If you're planning to become a nurse, you should have done that, right? And as I said before, every institution, some institutions are more strict in the sense where, like, for example, UE wants CAPE in order to get into nursing, right? While UTEC don't want to keep, and so you don't want to keep the student in nursing, right? So every institution is different, and that is why I want to educate people. I want to educate you students that, listen, when you're picking your subjects, there's a lot to take into consideration. You need to take into consideration the fact that English and maths is mandatory. You need a science subject, and you need IT or EDPM. And then after that, that is when you can get into the nitty-gritty and decide that, okay, am I going to become an accountant or something like that? POB, POA, OA, that is where you should be looking. If you're thinking about nurse, midwife, doctor, medical technology, pharmacist, anything like that, you're gonna need those science subjects. And if you don't get them now, you're gonna have a problem later on to get into in a university or a college, right? So I just want to inform you, right, and just make you more aware of what you're going to need at the next stage of your life. If you want to go to university, if you're just trying to get a job, then any 5 subject will work. And as a matter of fact, in some cases you can get a job with just 3 subjects in some cases. But English and maths, a lot of places want it. It is like that universal thing. You need the English and the maths, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. Just do your research from early, understand? And not everybody come from a family that is so tech savvy or a family that is aware of where society is going. So for example, you watching this video, you're becoming more educated and realize that listen, we need to be very careful about how I pick the C-sex subject that I'm doing, right? You don't want to graduate and have to pay more money if you do more subjects afterwards because you did the wrong subjects. And at the same, when you're in high school, you don't have to know exactly what you want to be, you know, right? Like as you go through life, we change, and you can always change your career later on if it don't work out. But what I'm saying is have ambition, and say listen, all right, me feel like me good at this, me go on with this for now, and as me go along, if me change my mind or find something I love more, I can change it down the line. But what I'm saying is don't stay yard and be cruff. Don't sit down and get a subject. Don't sit down and go to college if that is what you want to do. Or if you don't go to college, go and find a job. Right? So don't be a cruff. You don't have to know exactly what you want to be, but have an idea of the general scope. So you might then and say, I don't know if I want to become nurse, I don't know if I want to doctor, I don't know if I want to become pharmacist, I don't know if I want to become a phlebotomist or a med tech. But honestly, you don't know, right? But you know that it's probably going to need science. Then do the science subjects, and then later on when you get there, you figure out which one you're going to actually do, right? So don't give up. Just take the time and pick the correct subjects, and then you'll be fine, right? So anyways guys, this is the end of this video. Go ahead and like, comment, share, and subscribe, and if you have any questions, comment down below. All right, bye guys.